Cetec ERP is a business platform that is an especially good fit for contract PCB assembly companies, providing a fully integrated manufacturing suite for a low monthly subscription of $40 per user per month. In this demonstration, we're going to enter a blanket 4-month sales contract with production releases scheduled on a month-to-month basis. Then we'll bring in a kit of electronic components, process the material through an SMT line and through-hole process, inspect the finished assemblies, pack and ship a partial shipment of the assemblies to the customer, and finally run a cost analysis to determine the profitability of our production run for that shipment. Along the way, we'll highlight the specific problems that face PCBA contract manufacturers, like lead count and attrition rates, AVLs and customer-approved component substitutions, and quoting integration with CalcuQuote. Here's a table of contents of what we'll cover in this 8-part demo, along with relative timestamps, in case you'd like to skip ahead. Part 1. Setup. To begin, let's set up and configure a top-level assembly BOM with material and labor inputs typical of a contract PCBA manufacturer. Part numbers and BOMs. Your part naming scheme will center around the material makeup of PCB assemblies, electronic components, and sub-assemblies. Notice on the bill of materials screen how each component part number begins with a 3-character product code. This helps classify your items for reporting purposes. Also notice the categorization of these components into capacitors, diodes, and resistors. Finally, notice how sub-assembly levels are set within the bill of materials at any point where discrete sub-assemblies may be overbuilt or built ahead as part of the contract. AVLs, approved vendor lists, and material substitutes. In electronics manufacturing, customers may provide you with a list of part numbers that may be substituted, one for another. These are commonly referred to as AVLs, or approved vendor lists. These sets of interchangeable manufacturers' part numbers may be grouped under part spec groups. Then, within a customer's top-level assembly BOM, instead of setting only one unique manufacturer part number, you can specify a grouping of part substitutes that the customer will accept. Components within an AVL specified on a BOM may then be swapped out on a work order BOM as needed. Additionally, component shortages within the MRP will be flagged if an approved substitute is on hand that could satisfy the shortage, so you aren't buying additional unnecessary components when approved alternates are available. Finally, note that if you are using the best-in-class electronics quoting tool CalcuQuote, these AVL spec groups can be automatically created per BOM component upon pushing a BOM from CalcuQuote to Cetec, with no manual data entry required. Lead count and attrition rates. When setting up a work order BOM, you may also choose to set a scrap adder, that is lead count, and/or scrap factor, that is attrition rate, on reels or other component material. This will inflate the quantity of material needed that is sent to purchasing in the MRP module and adjust the estimated quantity of material to be issued in the kit and pick list on the work order in Cetec ERP. Customer supplied material. In many assembly contracts, customers may supply you with material. Thus, when setting up a customer BOM, you may flag a certain component or components as customer supplied. When a work order for this BOM is entered, any component known as customer supplied will trigger a special flag in MRP to alert the buyer to procure and receive the item via internal PO, following normal traceability process, but at $0 cost, so as not to inflate the value of your inventory. Furthermore, when such a customer-supplied part is received into stock, you may flag that receipt according to the customer who provisioned that material, and you may lock the bin location it is being received into, so as to reserve those components for only that customer's projects. Labor plan and process routing. Let's head to the labor plan and set up a process routing for this assembly. From this screen, you can add work locations in sequential order, from release and document preparation, to kitting and setup and prep stages, to SMT line work, to through-hole, wash, soldering, and whatever other production steps are needed in order to manufacture this assembly. Feel free to add all default locations to add them all at once, or use the clone function to copy from a default production routing template. The labor plan will serve three functions. First, it will serve as a labor cost estimate, which will be compared to actual labor tracked on the work order. Second, it will drive demand against production capacity available at the work locations, forming the basis of your production schedule. Third, it will publish as the work order traveler and work instructions your shop floor will use in order to manufacture. Revisions, ECOs, documents, drawings. Finally, note that part records in Cetec ERP are rev-controlled and equipped with integrated document management. This means that you can store engineering drawings or other work order documents in any file format on the assembly BOM revision, and those drawings will flow through to the work order so your shop floor operators can access needed drawings on the fly. Documents and drawings themselves are stored in Cetec ERP as controlled documents, which means you can require workflow approvals of new document revisions attached before the system will consider them live documents, which addresses common quality and certification standards for document control. Cetec also contains an integrated ECO/ECR module with workflow-based tools to track all responsibilities and requirements that go along with rolling a BOM revision from one rev to the next. An ECO will scan the ERP system for open customers, quotes, and work orders that could be affected by the revision change, letting you freeze unreleased work orders and roll revisions across unreleased and unkitted work orders in batch. Other tools. Numerous other part and BOM tools exist in Cetec to help make your life easier, like Where Used Reporting, which shows every top-level BOM that a certain component might be used on, a Mass Replace feature, which lets you swap a component on every BOM it's used on with one click, or BOM clone features, part merging, BOM comparison tools, master BOM template management, and so much more. Part 2. Sales. Introduction. Sales order. You can see we have modeled the sales order as a blanket customer contract with production releases, i.e. work orders, scheduled out on a month-to-month basis. 4 work orders with 4 ship dates across 4 months. Note well that the top-level part number, the BOM, and all of its metadata, which we reviewed in the product/BOM setup sections of Part 1 in this demo, all of this metadata flows through to the sales order line that the BOM is itemized on. The moment that top-level part number is added to a line item on an order, everything needed to schedule and purchase and kit and manufacture and deliver the product to the customer is already auto-populated and staged for you. However, before we proceed with manufacturing the product and diving into the work order process, let's pause and zoom out. How did this sales order get here in the first place? What processes did we have to go through in winning the contract from the customer? CRM. Our sales order exists because we have won the approval of a contract which we quoted. And if it's the first quote we've ever won from a customer, that means at some point we successfully nurtured a lead and closed a new account. Tracking these processes means we have stepped into the realm of CRM and quoting. Cetec ERP contains a full-blown CRM natively within the system, fully integrated, fully included, and offered at no extra cost. Notice how the customer record linked on the sales order is integrated into all other modules of the system, from accounting and AR to email notification settings to lead and opportunity forecasting. Notice how a note on the customer record that is set to sticky will then publish a highly visible sticky note onto any order activity for that customer for all users to be alerted. These kinds of features only scratch the surface of the full CRM capability natively built into the Cetec ERP platform. From lead tracking and pipelines with email and calendar integration, customer contact management, customer credit hold process controls and accounts receivables, customer incident satisfaction case tracking, customer RMA processing, customer portals, and more. That said, if you already have a CRM in place at your company, Cetec ERP offers APIs and integrations to major CRM platforms like HubSpot, Salesforce, Sugar CRM, and more. Check out our API documentation for more information. Now, for the purposes of this demo, let's imagine we've already closed this account and are now working on quoting a new particular opportunity with the customer. Quote to order workflows. Upon receiving a new inquiry, an inside salesperson will open up a quote and take down basic information like the customer name, general comments or requirements, attach any proposal documents or customer drawings, itemize any desired part numbers, desired dates, pricing, and quantity breaks, and any additional line-level notes or comments. If a quick turnaround with best guess pricing and availability is desired, the salesperson may generate and email a PDF of the quote directly from the system to the customer. It is very common for contract manufacturers to involve multiple parties in and through the quoting process. In these cases, a salesperson will use the quote workflow tool to route the quote to and from different departments and stages of a quote life cycle. Simply select the process owner from the drop-down list next to the stage you are assigning the quote to, and click to send the quote to that next department. Let's say engineering, for example. This workflow action will have 3 effects. First, it will send an email immediately to the assignee with a link to click open the quote you've assigned them. Second, it will populate the assignee's task queue with the quote, so that when that user logs into Cetec, they can see immediately which tasks they're supposed to work on next. Third, it will write to quote workflow history and quote reporting, providing sales managers the ability to see what stages open quotes are in, how long they've been there, who is currently assigned to the stage, and so on. So, in our example, an engineer will pick up quote number 37 from his queue and may be responsible for a few things, like importing a BOM to a new assembly part number, or highlighting requirements for the traveler, or specifying tooling requirements, or attaching engineering drawings to the quote. When engineering is done, perhaps they assign it to purchasing to double-check pricing and lead times of the components, or maybe the scheduling department needs to check capacity available to meet the production needs of Job 37. The workflow tool is customizable based on your quoting process. As you continue to use Cetec ERP, you'll notice that workflows exist across the system, helping cross-departmental collaboration across the enterprise, so that all employees at your company are on the same system, seeing the same information. Quote cost estimate. Next, note that the efforts your quoting or work order preparation teams put into entering BOMs and labor routings can be leveraged to produce an estimate of manufacturing cost and profit margin associated with a quote or customer PO. To set cost estimates on your job, drill into the BOM quote worksheet corresponding to the assembly line item you are quoting and see how the system automatically sums up these material and labor costs to derive a total job estimate cost. Assign a markup and notice how the system factors these costs to produce the final price based on your desired profit margin for the job. Then roll those markups back to the parent quote line item to drive home the pricing you are communicating to your customer on the quote. These estimates will stay with the quote as it turns into a work order and will form the basis of job cost comparison reports, letting you analyze estimated costs of production against actual costs for labor, overhead, and material costs that were consumed in manufacturing. Quote lifecycle, moving to the sales order. Finally, recall that job quotes have a lifecycle. After sending the quote PDF to the customer, you may set the quote to pending, indicating that your sales team is waiting on a customer response. If you end up losing the business, or if the quote expires and you don't hear back from the customer, you can reconcile the quote with a lost business type, which feeds one lost business sales analytics. In this demonstration, we will imagine that the customer has approved our quote and we've won the business. Thus, sales will enter a customer PO and commit to order. We are now back where we started, with our BOM itemized on a sales order. Part 3, Planning and Scheduling. At this point in our demo, sales has entered a customer sales order and now assigns the order via workflow to scheduling, who will schedule the order, update the order's promised ship dates, and have an order acknowledgement and confirmation sent to the customer. Manufacturing modes. Before scheduling the order, take note that Cetec ERP supports several different modes of manufacturing, including parts or distribution orders, traditional build-to-stock manufacturing orders, service-only orders, and more. In this demonstration, we are utilizing the make-to-order manufacturing mode. See how the transaction code listed next to the assembly BOM reads build. That indicates that the sales order line item itself is the work order, which will be processed through production and ultimately bypass the finished goods stage, shipping directly from WIP and straight to the customer. Material lead times and avail to promise. One tool that planners will use to get a leg up on scheduling is a materials forecast, often referred to as a what if or available to promise report. In Cetec, this report is called the build estimate. The build estimate offers a real-time analysis of the entire BOM contents, all available component stock in inventory or on order with a vendor, and compares that analysis to the net component requirements of the BOM. For any deltas where there is insufficient supply of stock to meet demand from the BOM, the build estimate will isolate that lead time of the worst such component and provide a worst-case scenario. That is, the soonest date at which you could have a complete kit ready to release to begin production, along with the expected finish date, based on the job's production lead time. This what-if information is often a helpful tool for sales personnel to use when attempting to ballpark a job lead time to communicate to an inquiring customer. From a quote line view, sales pull through build estimate info with a simple click of a button. Production scheduling. Having identified the earliest possible work start date based on material lead time constraints, the scheduling department may now click Reschedule Forwards from the work start date to populate a schedule of work for each stage of production modeled on the labor process router for our job. This action is how demand for production is loaded to a work location. Take, for example, the through-hole component install work cell. Scheduling reserves a certain amount of time against the capacity available at that work location for those days in view. Once all capacity at a given work location has been consumed in a day, work will load to the next workday where capacity is available. After rescheduling forwards, notice the final work segment at the last stage of production is logged as the estimated finish date of your work order. Theoretically, your planning department may then set the ship date of the customer order to be in line with the realities of the capacity of your facility. Then the planning department may assign the sales order via workflow back to the sales department in order to provide an updated and realistic acknowledgement and order confirmation to the customer. The same principle can be applied with backward scheduling. That is, you may choose to set your ship date in stone and then schedule backwards in time to determine the latest possible date on which you could start production and still meet that target ship date from sales. Your entire shop schedule may be reviewed in a Gantt chart format. By selecting View by Work Location, you can see a schedule of the load against work location and/or machine capacity for all jobs open in your ERP system. Where capacity is unavailable, work orders bubble around each other on the schedule in the order in which they were entered. Work segments may then be dragged, dropped, or removed entirely at the will of your scheduler. This is another excellent what-if tool that can help both sales and planning departments see where is the next available opening of capacity in your company where you could potentially slot in new work orders. Additionally, because Cetec deploys real-time tracking to the shop floor via mobile tablets and barcode scanning, your production managers can see the current job status, that is, where the work order actually is in production versus where the scheduler predicted it would be. Finally, once an established schedule is in place for our work order, let's assign our sales order over to the purchasing department to begin the process of supply chain management and procurement of any needed or short material required for production. Part 4. Purchasing. There are two ways contract manufacturers will set up their purchasing process in Cetec: buying per work order or buying across all work orders via a regular process called MRP. Buying per job. Buying per work order is simple. From the sales order itself, the buyer may navigate to the Create P-Quote screen, which contains a list of all component material and respective quantities needed for the work order, based on the work order's BOM definition. This screen will also show any available inventory of those components, whether any components are already on order, QOO, preferred supplier details, any sourcing comments for any of the components that had been noted during the quoting and order entry process, and more. From this screen, simply input the quantity you are going to buy on each line you're going to purchase, select a vendor, and submit. This will create a purchase order worksheet with the PO lines auto-populated. Additionally, note that each line item is tagged with the source sales order that the PO originated from. As the PO is converted from a P-quote to a true PO, this source order information will persist and flow through to the PO line item. Ultimately, when that PO line item is received, the source order information will flow through to the receipt label as well, so that receiving can know exactly which work order number the incoming material is destined for. Buying through MRP. If there is any chance of buying material to be shared and consumed on multiple different work orders in your manufacturing, you can buy more efficiently using the MRP module. The engine that powers MRP in Cetec ERP is the tracking of the allocation of existing and incoming supply of material to satisfy the demand of that same material caused by entering work orders for BOMs. This is most easily illustrated in the waterfall report. As you can see in our example, this work order BOM requires this material part number, which is short with negative availability. Drilling into the waterfall inventory forecast of this part, we can see that we have nothing of that inventory currently available on hand. We do have the material coming in on a purchase order, but that PO isn't scheduled to arrive in time for when our work orders are scheduled, and there isn't enough of it. So we can see our inventory forecast is going into the negative. Anytime a parts inventory forecast goes into the negative on the waterfall report, that will result in this item publishing onto the MRP report. A best practice in Cetec ERP is for a buyer or planner to work through anything that blips onto this MRP report to address the potential shortage of material, whether by issuing a new purchase order for more material or negotiating a better date with the supplier. In this example, we'll select 2 short parts from vendor Mouser, add them to a PO and approve the PO, and issue the PO to the vendor via email. Note that once an item has been placed onto a purchase order in Cetec, the waterfall knows about it and registers the incoming supply signal projected to satisfy the shortage, which means that item will drop off of blipping on your MRP the next time your buyer runs the MRP list. Notice also on the MRP list the yellow highlighted notation around this part shortage labeled Allocation Part Spec. This indicates that there are material substitutes, or AVLs, for that particular part need on the work order. Those have been approved by the customer as interchangeable. Instead of buying this part, you can click the yellow highlight to view the substitutes and swap out the component for that work order on the fly, which will update the work order's pick list and remove the part from the MRP buy report. Shop CQ. One excellent option for integration with the MRP modules in Cetec is with the CalcuQuote product Shop CQ. With the Shop CQ integration, a user can pull the supply-demand analysis from the most recent MRP run in Cetec ERP into Shop CQ, including smart analysis on all available AVLs and component alternates availability both in stock and on order. If an approved alternate is already available or already on order, the MRP system in Cetec will know about it and will advise Shop CQ accordingly. Additionally, Cetec ERP will push the demand for short components to Shop CQ and let the Shop CQ user not only shop for those components, but also the approved alternates for those components. Once the buyer shops through the best possible prices and lead times of all of those short components and alternates and makes their selections for purchase, Shop CQ will push selected items on POs back to Cetec ERP, issuing the necessary POs in Cetec ERP and making the necessary updates of which MPNs were selected to the corresponding pick lists on the corresponding work orders pending release to production in Cetec ERP. This achieves extremely powerful supply chain automation and integration directly to the Cetec ERP platform. Part 5. Materials and Inventory. Receiving. Let's imagine that the items on the purchase order we created in Section 4 has now arrived at our receiving dock. We have the warehouse receiving screen open on a laptop, and we see on the packing slip from the vendor the PO number we issued to the vendor. We enter that PO number on the receiving screen, and it automatically recognizes the open PO in the system and the lines waiting to be received. In the PCBA world, it's common for POs to have tens or hundreds of line items. Therefore, Cetec ERP contains a handy Receive All Lines feature to help your receiving personnel remain efficient in processing incoming receipts. Upon receiving against PO lines, you may set received parts to quarantine, pending the passing of an incoming inspection. You may set them to be put away into stock immediately by scanning the receipt and bin location, or you may opt to take them directly to the shop floor if Cetec tells you there are hot orders waiting on the receipt of this material to continue production. Finally, Note that a receipt of inventory against a PO line automatically creates an internal lot code tracked FIFO layer of inventory. This layer of inventory is tracked from cradle to grave. Any quantity of material adjusted or used from that internal lot will be tracked and traceable automatically with no additional effort. Notice how you can look up a single receipt of material and see all bins where it currently exists in inventory, all work orders it has been used on, and all final customer shipments it has ultimately gone out on, potentially through many layers of multi-level batch or sub-assembly production. This traceability carries import to both actual costing of manufacturing and additionally traceability of materials used in production, which are critical aspects of meeting regulatory requirements in medical, military, aerospace, and food beverage supply chains. Work order release to pick, issue material. The production scheduling reports in Cetec are real-time aware of whether the material needed for production has arrived, and if not, when the material should be arriving. These material shortage flags will flip to indicate to production planning that the order is here and ready to go. From these reports, the planning team can release work orders to production by printing work order travelers or by making digital assignments to pick queues to notify warehouse personnel to issue material to production for a job. These pickers may work from a tablet or laptop to gather the materials and components dictated by the work order kit, or make work from a printable pick list generated by the work order. Part of the picking process will be to identify the movement of an entire reel of components, a reel which contains far beyond the amount of components needed for this particular assembly work order. As such, Cetec ERP will let you identify where the reel is in production and pick the components needed from that reel onto the work order, and ultimately move the reel back into stock once it is finished being used on that one work order. Additionally, alternate components may be swapped or added to supplement the particular kit. Cetec ERP takes a copy of the permanent fixed BOM onto the work order, giving you flexibility to swap out approved interchangeable components on the fly without compromising the integrity of the fixed engineering BOM. Finally, note the existence of the auto-pick feature, which lets you pick all components on the BOM without having to pick from individual lot receipts one by one. This is a feature that may prove critical for PCBA contract manufacturers who need a fast and effective way to achieve sufficiently traceable material control in contract manufacturing. Inventory management. Industry standard inventory control features are of course supported. At any time, a user with the appropriate role may perform an inventory adjustment with an appropriate reason code. Cycle count or full inventory programs may be initiated and processed through the system. Finally, any movement of inventory, whether from inventory adjustments or receipts or shipments, are 100% auditable via the Inventory Activity Report, which represents bulletproof inventory traceability in Cetec. Part 6. Manufacturing and Quality Control. Production Tracking. Production tracking in Cetec ERP can be driven via a barcoded, paper-based work order traveler process, or by a digital, paperless system, or very often a combination of both. Let's take a look at both methods. Scanning into a work order traveler. First, at the time of initial release of the work order against scheduled production, it is very common to print out a paper traveler indicating key information like the customer, the work order number, the promised ship date, and the part number. Cetec also prints the production process routing, or labor plan, with barcodes according to each step in production. The production traveler may be printed, stuck in a transparent envelope, or affixed to the kitting bins that will be transferred to the first stage in production. When the traveler arrives at a shop floor employee's workstation, they can enter the work order number to bring up the order in the Cetec system, typically at a laptop kiosk or mobile tablet station, and perform their job functions. Alternatively, they can scan their own user badge and then immediately scan the barcoded work operation on their traveler. With those two scans, Cetec will automatically register who is working, which work order they are working on, and which work operation in the process routing they are clocking in on. When complete, the user can simply scan the work operation barcode again to stop the clock. Paperless routing. If desired, a manufacturing company can choose to go completely paperless with shop floor tracking. In this case, instead of printing out a paper traveler and physically handing the traveler off to a production staff member, the process will begin via assignment of the work order to a work location queue. Another employee will log in and see what has been assigned to them, that is, what has been placed in their queue, defining what they should work on next. From this queue, an employee needs simply to click on the next work order in the list, tap Start Work on the work order screen to clock in, and tap Stop Work to clock out. Estimate versus actual reporting. Time tracking on the shop floor helps you understand how much time manufacturing is actually taking versus how much time was estimated to take at critical stages of production. To report on this information, check out the Production, Estimate versus Actual Report for a real-time or historical production activity and its corresponding estimates. Consolidate the data by individual users or by production work locations, and monitor the efficiency of work being performed on a daily basis. Piece throughput and labor efficiency. In PCB assembly in particular, it is common for a batch of a few boards to progress through one stage of production and on to the subsequent stage, while the previous batch of boards is only just beginning its first stage of production. To track these movements, you may split the work order into smaller discrete quantities and move each discrete quantity through production on separate work orders. Each work order split off will retain the same work order numbering scheme, but with incrementing 1, 2, 3 suffixes to maintain discrete tracking without muddling the order numbers. However, if you'd prefer to keep your work order together under a single work order number, you could leverage the piece tracking system in Cetec. To use this function, simply have the production employee who is tracking the time against the batch of boards being moved from one stage to the next. Have them log the number of pieces that moved through, which are owing to their production time segment. This entry of the quantity of pieces through production will give visibility to the various batches of boards being moved through production and the percentage completion of pieces against the entirety of the order. 25% progress will glow red, 25 to 75% piece progress will glow yellow, greater than 75% piece progress will glow green. Additionally, piece tracking drives labor efficiency and production throughput reports. For example, check out the piece movement report for a view of how production throughput is driving expected forecasted revenue based on how close a work order is approaching shipping to the customer and how much of that revenue is moving through the shop at any given point in time. Production status. When the work order has fully completed a stage of production and is ready to be transferred to the next stage of production, the routing may be updated to push the work order to its next stage via clicking Move to Next if running paperless, or by scanning a barcode on the traveler if running via paper traveler. These movements of the work order through production are critical for reporting purposes, as it enables your entire company to see the real-time status of production as it relates to sales impact, on-time delivery, production targets, and more. Work instructions and build documentation. When a production employee reviews a work order, specific work instructions can print in line with the production routing on the paper traveler itself. It is common practice to format the work instructions so as to include a grid of form elements for data collection, initials and signature sign-offs, inspection sign-offs, test results, measurements, tolerance range data capture, and more. The work order traveler documents in Cetec are easily customizable, allowing you to create your own work order data collection forms to be printed out for production, if you'd like. However, you may also choose to go paperless and deploy your work instructions within the digital work order routing presented in the Instructions tab on the work order screen or mobile tablet or laptop on the floor. Work instructions may also be customized, data collection signatures required, inline pictures included, and even templatized form customizations for completely digital-based data collection on the floor. Even further, certain work instructions and inspection instructions may be set to require data population from a floor operator in order to unlock the work order's ability to move to the next stage of production or ship to the customer. Note also the pre-populated documents section of the work order, like the COC or ROHS form, which is auto-populated with work order information, so you don't have to manually key it in every time. These documents may also be CAD drawings or work instructions. Furthermore, the document links themselves may be hyperlinked, so as to be downloadable with one click from within the digitally delivered work instructions on the work order operator-friendly screen. Integrated QC, inspections, and quality assurance. As with work instructions, QC inspection requirements and inspection instructions may certainly be printed from Cetec ERP onto paper and physically tracked and signed off on from the shop floor. However, performing inspections and logging inspection results within the system in real time instead of on paper has the benefit of tying immediately to other integrated quality management features of Cetec ERP. For example, by logging an inspection failure from within the work order process itself in Cetec ERP, a resulting non-conformance report is generated and automatically populated with key information from the source production order, like the customer, BOM, BOM components, inspection ID, and more. From here, the NCR may be further processed in Cetec along its own work order and data collection requirements, including logging of scope and containment, escalation to material review board, resolution with a corrective action workflow in Cetec, root cause analysis, 8 disciplines report, and so on. This begins to scratch the surface of other integrated quality assurance facets of Cetec ERP, which include but are not limited to tool and asset calibration scheduling and maintenance, customer complaint and satisfaction case tracking, and document control and approvals workflows. Scrap processing. Raw material. Another common manufacturing process that PCBA contract manufacturers deal with on a day-to-day basis is the handling of scrap material. On the electronic component side, materials that are unintentionally damaged or having another issue can be handled via the part request feature on the Cetec ERP work order. To use this feature, simply look up the parts list on the work order, locate the component, and click Request Part. This will initiate and queue up a request to a warehouse user for that part, so that your production employee can continue working at their workstation without having to go physically chase down the components needed themselves. Meanwhile, any and all new part requests populate to the top of the warehouse picker's pick queue. A picker can open a part request, find out what components are needed, who requested them, which work order to bring them to on the floor, and where that work order is in production, all from one screen. Picking and fulfilling a part request will add material picked to that work order so that all material used, both planned material and unanticipated scrapped material, may be costed appropriately on the work order. Scrap rates and part request data can then be reported en masse via the Part Requests Report to help identify trending of most common reasons for scrap. Scrap processing. Finished assemblies. A scrap process may also be initiated for finished assemblies that fail to pass in-process or final inspections. When a PCB assembly fails inspection, the first fork in the process is whether the assembly is salvageable. If it is salvageable, you can split the work order quantity off into a separate line and move the newly split work order back through a rework stage in production routing. If you'd prefer to keep the work order all together, you can status the entirety of the work order to a rework stage, even though only one assembly may be actually being reworked. Alternatively, you can keep the work order status as is in the inspection stage and simply have a production employee clock time of pieces through the rework stage using the time tracking and pieces complete feature. If, on the other hand, the assembly is not salvageable, you may log the scrapped assemblies with a failed inspection record first, then head to the Delete Line screen in Cetec ERP and use the scrap feature to write that quantity both off of the customer work order and off of the inventory books as well, with an inventory adjustment reason code of scrap. Another more manual way to achieve this same effect would be to build that defective finished assembly into finished goods stock and then manually inventory adjust that same quantity out of stock with the scrap reason code. Outsourcing and subcontracting. When sending materials out for a subcontracted manufacturing process, follow these 3 steps. First, make sure and pick the materials from inventory to indicate which materials are being manufactured. Second, set a work order status to outsourcing or some other descriptive work location so that everyone in your company knows that that job is currently out of the facility and at an outsourced vendor. Third, create an outsourced PO from the work order. Multiple work orders can be added to a single outsourced PO if you have multiple different jobs being sent to the subcontractor at the same time under a single PO. Also, you may attach multiple outsourced POs to a single work order if the work order is going through multiple processes at a vendor or several different vendors. The outsourced PO amount you are charged from the vendor will track to the manufacturing cost of the PCBA assemblies being processed, along with materials cost and labor and overhead costs. Serialization. This serialization of the top-level assemblies in a PCBA contract may be done in Cetec on any work order at any point in time during the manufacturing process from beginning to end. Let's imagine in our example that serialization is happening at the final stage of production, after passing inspection, just before packing and shipping. To serialize product, head to the Work Order Serials tab on the left side navigation menu. From this screen, notice that the maximum number of serials you may issue is defined by the work order quantity. You can't issue more serials than assemblies you are building on the work order. Note also that you may choose to issue serials blank if, for instance, your company is generating serial numbers from an offline or outside source. The serial field can be manually populated by such a serial number scheme if you so wish. Otherwise, you can set up a serialization masking configuration to auto-generate serial numbers for you based on a predefined scheme of keyword data, which maps to various Cetec ERP data elements. For example, we could set our serial number to populate first the order number, followed by the part number, followed by an auto-incrementing unique serial number, or any other combination of serial number formatting elements. Once serialized, the serial numbers may be printed out in barcode format, included in packing and shipping and invoice documents, or in other work order documents as needed. Additionally, serials shipped will be stored in Cetec for traceability purposes. This is especially helpful if serial numbers are shipped to distributors and then sold to end users. End users may report a serial number to your company as the original manufacturer, with no knowledge of the invoice number you originally shipped on. Serials returned may be tracked in through the RMA process inside Cetec ERP. Service history on serials will be stored and tracked as to whether they are still within the warranty period defined on that product and that original sales contract. Seven, packaging, labeling, shipping, invoicing. Now that our product is serialized, we are ready to move to the final stage of this PCBA contract manufacturing transaction lifecycle: packing, shipping, and invoicing. The manufacturing of this work order is complete, and all product has passed inspection and has been serialized. There are 4 scheduled releases of this product to ship the customer. We're going to pack up and ship the first release. First, note that the shipping department may review a report on a daily or weekly basis of work orders that have been queued up to ship. This is the paperless model, whereby a digitally based workflow has been leveraged to assign the work order to the shipping department's queue. And the shipping department works from that queue and selects the next work order shipment to process off of that queue. Alternatively, the work order paperwork could be physically handed to shipping, and shipping could scan into the work order number listed on that document. Either way, to process the shipment, the user needs to head to the Ship Invoice screen on the order and ensure that the proper quantity about to be shipped is set in the Ship Quantity field. This is helpful if shipping is needing to process a partial shipment of only some of the quantity due on the line item. In this case, we are shipping our line item in its full quantity. Clicking Packing Slip will download a PDF printout of the packing slip to go along with the shipment. Additionally, barcoded packing labels may be printed out from the packing label screen. Any packing slip or packing label may be customized by your company per your specific requirements. Furthermore, packing slip and packing label customizations may be defined in a custom template registered specifically to a single customer. This is to accommodate any of your customers with specific requirements for packing document formats and barcode formats. Finally, you may enter the tracking number and freight amounts dictated by your shipping, weighing, and manifest systems, or you may utilize the Ship Engine plugin to enter weights, generate freight charges, and print shipping labels directly from within the Cetec ERP shipping screen without any further manual data entry. Packing documentation may also be printed in batch for multiple separate work orders from the Release Orders report, which is useful for higher volume order shipment processing. To mark a work order as closed and shipped, simply click Create Invoice. This will relieve the electronic components which were previously picked into WIP, cost the actual costs of material, labor, overhead, and outsourcing, into COGS buckets in your GL and P&L, drive revenue posted to the P&L for this shipment, and drive AR associated with the shipment based on the customer terms of their contract. This action also queues up an invoice for your accounting department to review, adjust as needed, and ultimately send to the customer. Invoices may also be sent out overnight automatically if you wish to set up automatic invoicing to your customers. Part 8. Job costing, financials, and reports, KPIs. Now that we have shipped and invoiced a finished assembly off of our customer contract, let's look at the reporting and KPIs that are now automatically available. First, we can review the job cost and profitability of the production of these assemblies. Simply click Cost Analysis from the invoice screen and view a breakdown of all actual costs that went into production, from the pure material costs of components that we purchased and consumed on the job, to labor, overhead, and outsourced manufacturing costs. These same costs can be reviewed en masse on the Invoice Cost Comparison Report, which stands up actual manufacturing costs against estimated costs for all production over time. Notice also that a shipment and invoice of a work order automatically populates the financial statements in the accounting module. The inventory relieved from components that went into the assembly means our inventory asset account on our balance sheet has been reduced. AR asset accounts on the balance sheet automatically increased when we invoiced the order and drove AR. The manufacturing costs of goods sold updated our COGS account on the P&L. The revenue from the shipped product hit our revenue accounts on the P&L. What has been accomplished with Cetec ERP is that your accounting system is seamlessly integrated to your core inventory and manufacturing operations in real time. To illustrate how powerful this is, follow how quickly we can drill down into the P&L to see where our COGS values derived from. They derived from these invoices. Which invoices are those? It was this invoice in particular. Which shipped these assemblies? On this work order. And why did that work order cost that much? It's because these electronic components were picked and used on the work order, and those electronic components were received against this purchase order. In a matter of seconds, we've drilled from the highest level financial report in the P&L all the way down to the source vendor purchase order line receipts of raw material that were received weeks beforehand. A fully integrated system means your business-critical data is at your fingertips. You can enjoy high-level dashboards and a fast glimpse at the pulse, the lifeblood information your business depends on. You can drill into any anomalies in the data and find root causes immediately, nipping issues in the bud before they become actual problems. You can set up custom dashboards for individual users or departments to see on their home page, so that it's the first thing they see when they log in to Cetec ERP in the morning. You can export any report to Excel with one click. You can tap Cetec ERP as a data source to feed Cetec ERP BI, our custom business intelligence engine. All of this is so that you can see the inner workings of your business, find what you need faster and more efficiently, and get a handle on the things you need to understand to run your business well. Cetec ERP offers this complete business platform for growing electronics manufacturing companies at a simple monthly fee of $40 per user per month. Check us out at cetecerp.com. Start a free trial or contact us for help getting started. Thanks for watching.